Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate coming your way on a beautiful early June day 2017. So I'm coming at you to review a film this time. A movie that I never thought I'd be reviewing, never thought I'd see. It was playing at a second run theater and the weather was just horrible and just like in the 50s or 50-degree weather, overcast, just crap. And I'm just like, this movie was going to leave the second run theater, I think, a couple days after, and I'm like, let's just go see it. I'm curious about this movie, and so I'm here to review the movie by the name of Get Out. Now, it should be noted, and this isn't arbitrary, they do these things on purpose, that this movie came out I think in Black History Month. This is basically a hugely divisive, it has a potential to be like, well, it's basically a hugely divisive movie, or the potential to have, or to be. Basically, I mean, there's been movies like this before, stuff you can tell just by the title, like Blackula and all this kind of stuff before, basically movies based on race and stuff like that, but, it should be said that, the whole problem, if that's what you want to call it, of racism and all this shit, was created by, the people who rule and set up society and shit. So it's created. I mean, if media and all this shit wasn't in power, I mean, there'd be no such thing. If it wasn't a bunch of evil bastards in power, there would be no such thing as like this shit and racial divide and all this bullshit. So it should be said that first off the bat, that this movie is basically, how the media likes to say, oh, report on all this racist shit. Well, basically, they're complicit, whether it's a news outlet or a movie studio or a group of people producing and releasing a movie of this nature. How media likes to point fingers at supposed, hate-based race crimes and all this bullshit. Well, basically, every time they report on, which is probably mostly, if not all, fabricated race-based stories, whenever they report on it or make a race-based movie, they're in my opinion, the ultimate bad guy in creating and perpetuating this whole race bullshit. I just wanted to say that. I was going to kind of say it at the end, but I said it at the beginning, so maybe some of you people clicked off already, and if not, I'll continue on to actually review this movie as I'm here to do. But I just had to get that off my chest. Like, this whole just dividing people on, race and religion and genders and sex and all this kind of shit isn't just accidental. It's all purposeful, and it's a way to keep the masses of the world divided. And if you play along with it, and even Republican and Democrat and all this kind of bullshit, and if you play along with it, you're playing their game. So just try not to just fit into one of these groups and dislike all others, and I don't know. I mean, that's kind of my opinion. It's just like, if you fall into this category of being, I'm not going to use the word racist because that's their word, like the bad people who created this, world that we live in and all this shit. But I just try not to, fall into the whatever. So, and I try to keep my own, just opinions that are, and not have it biased by all kinds of shit. Well, it helps that I don't watch TV and shit. So anyway, on to my review of Get Out. I was, kind of just expecting well, I watched the trailer first. That was the deciding factor whether I was going to go see it at the second run theater, and I was like, oh, the trailer's kind of funny, and the guy in the movie, I mean, the black guy in the movie, I was pleased that the black guy in the movie, the main star, was not what you'd call like ghetto. There was a line in the movie, or in the trailer, that wasn't in the movie, which was kind of disappointing, kind of a stereotypical, when he's talking to that TSA guy who was kind of more the conventional black. I'm glad that the main character, wasn't the conventional black. He was just kind of a normal person, and didn't fall into that, like, he didn't talk all black and just have that kind of black attitude like his TSA buddy. But there was this line in the trailer I was waiting for to see in the theater where he's like, you're not going to come back with your pants, from the visit to all his girlfriend's white family. You're not going to come back with your pants up to your waist, are you? It's just like, oh gosh, so first off the bat, I did appreciate that the main character in this movie was not, I mean, there's all kinds of course, different black people and white people and all kinds of different, any ethnicity, there's all kinds of, there's ghetto whites, there's ghetto blacks, there's non-ghetto whites, there's non-ghetto blacks, ghetto Asians, non-ghetto Asians, whatever. It goes across all races and whatever and all this and that. So I was pleased just being a person who's, I guess, if I may say so, a non-ghetto white. I appreciated the fact that the black guy, the main character in this movie, was or at least in my opinion, what I would regard as a non-ghetto black, and I also appreciated the fact, being a kind of a dabbling in the arts and, photography myself, I also appreciated that the character was creative and not just, I thought he'd be maybe more of a typical, stereotypical black male, like his TSA buddy in the movie was more kind of like the stereotypical black character. It can go black or, male or female in these kind of movies, but he was definitely, his TSA buddy was definitely more the stereotypical, comic relief in this particular instance. So, the movie was a lot better than I thought it'd be. I was particularly, I kind of liked how it began with this other black character at the beginning walking down the street and getting abducted. He was found himself in this is probably the same neighborhood as his, his girlfriend's family live in, so there's this scene at the beginning where this other black character is walking down this street in this upper class suburban neighborhood or whatever, and gets kind of this little suspenseful scene that doesn't go very long. It could have went a little longer for my money, but where the character, it's like a pre-credit scene where the character gets abducted, and I kind of like the music in the car. It was just kind of cool. So off the bat I was like, wow, and I think it was all kind of done in one shot, like a Steadicam shot and stuff. So I was like, wow. So long story short, this was a lot better than I thought it'd be. And basically, if you don't know, the premise is basically this white girl, if I can call her that without being racist, has this black boyfriend, and she's gonna, she wants to take him up to meet all her whatever, obviously white family and upscale whatever white family, and of which the black boyfriend is kind of hesitant about, and rightfully so. And kind of when you get there, you know exactly why he was hesitant to meet, the white family and stuff like that. So basically, she brings him up there, and obviously there's on the surface or spoken, there's no whatever, there's no really anything, but then some of the underlay, there's like this tension and whatever, and some things like racially based things will be said, and just whatever. I can't remember specifics, but I'm not gonna go on and on with the Alien whatever Covenant review that I just did and do a beat by beat. Long story short, it's kind of what ends up happening in this movie is the girlfriend is just doing what she's done. The white girlfriend is doing what she's done several times before, where she's basically befriended I'm assuming she basically slept with all these guys too, I would imagine. She basically befriended a black guy. This is just we see through pictures, and she's done this presumably, many, many, many times before. This guy basically befriends this black guy to bring him up to this, Stepford Wives kind of setting, if you will, Stepford family maybe, Stepford whatever, Stepford community, to basically, and it's kind of stupid, but whatever, there's probably some truth in, hidden in this stuff, as there usually always is in, whether it's TV, quote unquote fiction or movie fiction or whatever. Basically, and I found this kind of weird that, there's a couple of, one of the things that about this movie that I should say that is kind of, I guess, gets our main black character off, sets him off, or keeps him a little bit uncomfortable, is these two other black servants or whatever. There's this man and this woman black servant or whatever, which kind of whatever, and they act really weird. Long story short, it turns out, and this is kind of dumb and whatever, I wasn't expecting this. Long story short, it turns out that that I guess like the family members implanted. I don't know whether it's they did a brain transplant, or I don't know. I couldn't follow along. Like I've said so many times, it's hard for me to get all the details on a first viewing. But this will probably be the only viewing of this movie I do, unless it's like $2 down the road on DVD or something at Half Price Books. But I'd probably get it for that. So long story short, basically this Stepford community, white Stepford community, apparently abducts some black people to like put, like as they age, to put their brain or their consciousness into these black bodies to like continue living. Like basically the male black and the female black servants in this movie are like grandpa, like the white grandma and grandpa or something. Like they're, if I'm understanding this correctly, their brains or essence like put into these bodies or whatever, and it's just like, I don't know. So basically this black guy who's the photographer, this is the reason why he's a photographer. I hate this in movies, why when there's a detail like he's a photographer, it can't just be a detail that is just a detail for being a detail's sake. It always has to have a reason why, which is kind of, it's when the fact came along of the reason why, I was just like, oh, it was cool that he was a photographer, and I wish it could have just been that without having a reason why. And here's a reason why. There's this like old white, I think he was an artist or photographer too or something like that, who has since gone blind and whatever, and he's whatever. So basically they had we don't know what's happening at the time, but there was like an auction basically of all these rich Stepford community people, basically an auction. They make it look like it's bingo, but it's an auction to basically buy, I guess, the body of this black guy who the white daughter has brought up for the weekend or whatever, which as we find out later, she's done several times before, like, with maybe more than 10. So it's quite the life this girl, leads. I don't know how she doesn't get pregnant screwing all these people, but whatever. Maybe she's, well, the Stepford psycho family probably just had her female innards taken out or whatever. Maybe she's an android, who the hell knows. Like, maybe she bleeds milk like Ash from Alien. But long story short, this older blind artist wins the bid. So that's kind of why he picked this black guy who was a photographer or whatever, so he's got like good eyes or this kind of bullshit. So long story short, there's at the end of the movie, early on in the movie there was this cool scene where the white girl's mother is like a hypnotist, and this scene really was cool, and the way it was done, where this movie surprised me in how well like conceived and executed it was. And of course, as so many times before in these kind of movies, it has to do this slow build, which it does very well from the beginning. As the movie progresses into whatever, there's the goofy ending it has. But early on at the beginning of the movie, this character's trying to quit smoking, or well, maybe not, maybe he just says that, but regardless, this character smokes, and he goes outside in the middle of the night to try to smoke, and on the way back in he gets basically, or not confronted, but he falls upon his girlfriend's mom, who's just sitting there basically waiting for him. Long story short, she hypnotizes him in this scene, and the way they do it's really cool, where she's like, okay, fall to the floor or through the floor or whatever, and it's just like, and he's kind of in space, and this small window of just the woman in the room kind of just gets smaller as he gets deeper. That was just a fantastic visual representation of him being under hypnosis. And this guy, the black guy who's the lead actor in this movie, I found to be very surprisingly fantastic actor, where he's just like talking about things that I won't get into of the character's past that bring tears to his eyes, like while he's hypnotized and recounting these events, and tears, which appear to be, unless they're computer generated tears, which appear to be real tears. And this guy I really like this guy who is the main black guy in this movie, and the fantastic acting skills, and was overall surprised by this movie. I don't really like how it turned out. I sounded like I was from Canada right there. Turned out, rather, with the whole kind of putting the, whatever, like, I don't really know how to put it into words, but long story short, I think at the end of the day, I'm going to move forward and give this movie, you know what? We'll just go for it. I mean, I think it deserves it. It's kind of hard for me to do because of just the disdain I had for this movie when it came out, just based on what I knew it was gonna be, just like a race-based horror movie or whatever. It's just so pathetic. And coming out, I think I already said it came out conveniently in Black History Month, of course, just not by accident, obviously. It deserves it. I'm gonna give this movie 2 3/4 stars out of 4 stars. With the exception, of course, of the black character's more, what do you call it? What's the stereotypical TSA friend? I rather enjoyed the movie. It wasn't too keen necessarily on just the overall, you know, reveal of what's going on in regards to just them putting their white persona into these black bodies or whatever. But again, maybe it's some truth there, maybe not. I mean, whatever. So there it is. I would purchase this movie on DVD or Blu-ray for $2 or less. I'm sure it'll end up, you know, on a clearance movie rack down the line. So I mean, it was, needless to say, a lot better than I expected it to be. So thank you very much for watching this review, or my review of Get Out, and as always, we'll catch you next time.